because black children at that time were so close to the mother. They've never left the mother's heat for the
Mm,
first year,
mm.
and there were
Wow.
always somebody with their hands on that baby. And the white professors and the researchers found that the child was so advanced that they had at 1 year at 11 months they had the mastery of shapes down and the mastery of being able to say language. The whole thing about us is that we have left our fundamental humanity and we've adopted the Europeans' way of dealing in a hostile environment because every environment he came up in a refrigerator, we came up in an incubator, and his refrigerator mentality is what we've been adapting, which is why we suffer the way we do.
Mhm. I want to move on to the next question. Like I said, we're pressed with time.
Mhm.
One of the things that we hear constantly in the new age community, what we call the new age community, because we forgot who we were and we're being lied to extensively,
Mhm.
is the topic of gratitude. And they say gratitude, when you tap into gratitude, gratitude is wonderful because it's a frequency of receiving. So when you're in a state of gratitude, you end up receiving more. And the more gratitude I display, the more I figure out and I really feel it, I start getting more of that ish. You know what I'm saying? So gratitude is a wonderful frequency to experience and to display constantly. But the thing is, we're often appreciative for material things that we've manifested. Like, let's say a home. Let's say my son got accepted into a school. Let's say my business is doing well. Let's say I found a woman. Let's say a woman found a man. But one of the things that a lot of people don't give gratitude for, and this is interesting, is the empty space around the material objects. Now, Bobby Hemmett talked about the space between the notes, the silence between the notes being the key that creates the beauty in the music. When you have when you have one note to another note, that space in between, that's where the beauty comes from. The space and the silence in between. So, just same way, the space in between the notes, the space in between material objects creates a certain beauty because it creates a distance, it creates this, it creates geometry, it creates whatever. So talk to me about what would happen, do you think, if we started giving appreciation, not for the material we receive, but for empty space?
Mm. Well, that was a powerful thought, actually, because as you're saying that, me being a producer as well as
Yes.
you,
Yes.
understanding, notes and music and um, and seeing the spaces now, seeing the empty spaces in between the notes that I'm creating and the beats that I'm creating,
Yeah.
you can actually take the empty spaces between an actual song and then you can figure out where the notes and beats were. So it's a reverse type of a
Mm,
map. It's like
mm.
taking a map and putting or a picture of something and turning it into a negative,
Right.
right?
Okay. Mm,
It's the same exact thing. And so when
mm.
you take a photo of something and you turn it into a negative, back in the day before, some of these kids on here might not remember that you have to take a photo with an actual camera and take it to get developed. And then they give you the negatives inside the package with the photos. Remember that, Dr. Valentine, right?
Oh, are you kidding? There you go. Look at that. Another gray hair to this group.
Oh man.
But what's so interesting is looking at the negative of the photo, you can still see everything in the photo, but just from a different perspective,
Indeed.
Mm.
Indeed.
And so that really, it's a great question you just asked because I've been actually never heard that question asked that way before.
Thank you.
That we're talking about looking at an incredible universe. We know that we have, what they're saying is dark matter and dark energy and everything else. These are the beauty of those empty spaces, which is creating everything that we see. But also, just even in the smaller things, even within this room, there's empty spaces. There's what appears to be spaces between things. Even when you decorate your home, you create space between things, and that space helps to define the beauty of what you're trying to create. So, appreciation, though, and being very appreciative and thankful is a powerful, powerful tool for manifesting. When you can get to the point where you actually are grateful and thankful and appreciative directly from the heart chakra, like really from the heart. And when you tell somebody, if somebody gives you something, you say, "Oh, thank you." That's like a robot. We're programmed, "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you." And we don't feel that emotion of thank you. We just say it because it's the polite thing to do. When you get to a point where you truly actually feel that emotion of thank you as you're saying it, the gratitude as you're actually saying it, that's where the power and the gratitude is. When you can come to a point where you're humble enough to feel that gratitude and really truthfully be thankful for everything that you have, then you find out that the universe just opened up and everything just falls right towards you. I mean, literally. And when I started learning about this about 10 years ago. I started experimenting, doing my own thought experiments. So I would do my thought experiments and I would go around and I would just be politically correct appreciative, and I would see what would happen. Okay. And then I would wait a few more weeks, and I would go and I would be heartfully appreciative and grateful and thankful, and then to see what happens. And every single time I did this experiment, the same thing happened. I got more blessings coming my way when I was heartful and thankful and appreciative than when I was not, when I was pretending to be. And I said, wow, out of 10 times for this thing to work 8 times, there has to be something here. So there's something huge about this thing. And when you get into that mind state and you can make it a habit where you truthfully from the heart, being very thankful all the time to no matter what it is, to just your surroundings, the blessings that you have every single day, the fact that you're able to get up and walk around, if you're able to do that. Some people can't even do that, you know? If you have a bicycle, be grateful for that, because some people can't even get on a bike and ride it because they don't have legs. There's so many things to be grateful for down so many different levels. And so when I began to realize that, stop and smell the roses, right? And just give thanks for that. That's when I started to see this huge wave of just blessings just continuously to come my way. But the trick is you can't do it for the blessings. If you do it for the blessings, then that's the fake heart. That's the fake heart chakra. That's the dead one. That's the politically correct one. It has to be sincere. And when it's sincere, you will see the result manifest in your life.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Absolutely. In our school family, we teach the space between thoughts. And what it is our thoughts get in the way because we're always dragging up the past. The thought is a mechanism of the past. There is no future thought unless it has been calculated and imagined from what you have experienced of the past. So all thoughts are nothing more than cataloging of experiences. And what we do is that we rely on our thoughts to maintain a sense of existence, of permanence. And our thoughts keep us actively indulged in ourselves. And we don't understand that these thoughts are suffused with pain, with anger, with frustration, with disappointment, with all types of hurt and different anguishes and jealousies and so forth. So every time we bring up thought as a means for pacifying or comforting ourselves, we've lost it. What we have to find within ourselves is that aspect or area of intelligence, because beyond thought is intelligence. In fact, the silence that is in between thoughts is where you find intelligence. When you can stop the thought process from interfering with your observer's observation of the silence, it is that space between the thoughts that it frees you from all of the different quirks that you have, all the symptoms of pain and so forth. So we teach at our university that the thought process becomes an internal dialogue that maintains our sense of beingness. But because we are trapped in the past, we always reference the future based upon the past. And there's an anxiety that grows. There's this type of desperation that grows because our thoughts keep us occupied. The thoughts need to be there. They exist. They're like our children. We have them connected to ourselves because our judgments maintain them. They're like children that don't grow up. They keep pulling at us. They keep tugging at us. And the emotions that go with the thought that was created at the time, say you had a bad breakup, and the emotion at that time and the thoughts that happened at that time, you've connected an emotional signature to that moment. And every time that moment comes back, the emotion comes flooding back. And they want to live. They keep pulling at you, these thoughts. I want to live. But when you stop them, when you no longer give them the attention that they cry for, when you no longer hear them screaming like crickets in the night. You don't know where they are. You just know the crickets are out there because you can hear them. When you can no longer focus on them as the priority in your meditations, then that's when that space that you speak about opens up. And that is the direct area code to God.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying this conversation. Moving on to the next question. You know, they say technology emulates the technology that we use, the computer, the phone, all of this stuff emulates the technology that we have built inside of us.
Mhm.
So I want people to understand spirituality, and maybe by describing it in a technological way, they can understand it better. Just like the whole concept of Wi-Fi and downloading. Everybody says, I got to download it. It helps everybody to understand how we communicate with that prime source or the quantum universe. So let's use technology real quick for a second. So they say an IP address, this was it, an IP address is a unique address that identifies a device on the internet or the local network. An IP address allows two devices, the sender and the recipient of the internet communication, to find and exchange info with each other. So if we're computers, biological computers, and we have IP addresses, how does my IP address from a technological way identify, let's say my mother passed away, I want to communicate with her. How does my IP address identify or communicate with her IP address because she's on another network, but I can't see her, but I want to communicate with her?
Well, it's pretty interesting. First of all, you know that definition of an IP address is pretty accurate as to what we are experiencing in the third dimension in this corporeal avatar body, in my personal opinion. And so, you know, when you look at the as above, so below from the ancient Kemetic principles, and you begin to realize something interesting, that we're experiencing in this life, in this avatar body, what the universe is doing as a whole. And what I mean by that is this: the universe itself is a giant mind, in my opinion, and we have a mind in our avatar body. And so we're just a fractal of the whole. We're a smaller picture of what really is going on. And so if you look at the human mind, it's encased in darkness. It doesn't know anything. It can't tell anything that's going on the outside, but it has friends: hearing, smell, sight, touch, right? All your sensory perception. And so the brain talks to its friends and say, hey, friends, I need to know what's going on out there. Please go out and collect me some information, collect me some data. So the friends go out, touch, smell, hearing, sight, and so forth. They go out and they collect data. Now, the friends themselves can't decipher the data. They're collecting the information, but they don't have the capability to discern it. They bring it back to the brain. The brain says, thanks for the data. The brain sorts it all out in a few microseconds and then projects a hologram as to what it believes is going on outside. We navigate through that hologram based on that projection from data collected by sensory perception. Okay. And so, yeah, you look at this and you see, wow, well, what does that mean? Well, I believe that there's one radio station. If you look at the divine universal consciousness as a radio station in your neighborhood, it's broadcasting out multiple frequencies, multiple radio stations. I'm 99.1. That's my IP address. You're 99.2. Dr. Phil is 99.3, and so forth and so on. Consider those your IP addresses. You're able to pick up a dot number frequency coming from that radio station. Your avatar body is specifically tuned to pick up a particular portion of the frequency, giving us the illusion of individuality. When in true reality, there is no individual. We are all one, experiencing life subjectively from different perspectives, because we all are slightly tuned to a dot point number of a frequency that gives us the illusion of being separated. But separation is also an illusion. And so I believe that we are all the same entity walking in the flesh, trying to decipher what it's like to be Billy Carson, Dr. Phil Valentine, you, Richard, even a blade of grass, even a rock. And all of us, you said two-way transmission on the IP address, are all collecting data like our five sensory perception is for the brain. We are the sensory perception in the avatar body. It's collecting data by living the life and then transmitting it back to a higher dimension, to your higher self. Your higher self is in a higher dimension. And so I believe that's the mode of communication that's going on, that we're literally on a data collection mission and we're transmitting it back to source. That's how I feel it's operating.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. The IP address in our university is the pineal, the epiphysis dorsi. Your IP address is your own individual epiphysis dorsi. It's your broadcast and receiver for higher consciousness vibrations. The communicating with your mother, for example, is not a energy that can be spoken into third density, because third density is an impediment. And what I mean is that we, as the avatars of God, are existing in a compression zone of 1,600 pounds per square inch. It's as if you were, for instance, to go down about 10 miles or 5 to 6 miles under the ocean, say in the trench, in the Pacific Trench. The pressure of what's above you is going to bear down. The water pressure is going to bear down on you based upon that. Well, as we as souls, spirits, came into this density that we see, this water density that we call our atmosphere, it is holding us together. But we did not communicate with the voice. The vocal part of us only became more sophisticated in for the last maybe 50,000 years. Our communication was pineal to pineal, brainwave frequency to brainwave frequency. That's why our ancestors in Kemet and the Kemetu, they always wrote in pictures, because you dream in pictures, you think in pictures when you are calling memories and so forth. There was always some kind of picture that comes to match. Say, for instance, you have a nightmare. The nightmare is coming to match a particular feeling or perception. So you draw from the bank of experiences, maybe something that you saw on television and so forth, and that brings you your nightmare. It connects with that particular vision of what you've had for yourself. So understanding that the vocal cords right now are what we just, this is the newly developed way of communicating. Our old way of communicating was always mind to mind, and we did so in pictures, which again is, if you were to do a meditation on some, on say the, what they call, what is the one that was in Seti's, in Pepe's sarcophagus, the codes that you see. If you were to meditate on the Medunecha, you would begin to pick up the one who was actually drawing and putting those figures together, because the brain communicates in pictures. And so you can actually get in contact with mom, but you have to silence the thought process. The thought process is of third density. If that gets in the way, it brings the emotions that match that particular thought density to this plane. So you have to lose the particular figurations of thought and get into the space as spoken about earlier, get into that null zone. And that's where the communication takes place. That's where there's no longer any impediments to what you imagine. Remember, that's your emotional body. Your emotional body is necessary for not only procreation, but for communication. And instead of it being emoted so that the body begins to feel and goes through this intense feeling that the emotion gives you, you then channel that emotional energy outward and call upon your mother, and she'll talk to you in your sleep.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely powerful, man. I mean, you two are titans, man. I mean, the way y'all breaking these quantum perspectives down. Wow. Moving on, we're gonna keep moving. We're gonna go fast with this. We're not gonna just dwell on one thing. We're gonna keep it moving. In terms of divine thoughts, this is something I've noticed. People will read something, they will read ancient texts, they will believe it. They will say, damn, we gods, y'all. We are ancient gods. We are. A lot of people will say, I am God having a human experience, and they will believe that. But when it comes time to using that thought to imagine something in a human event, like let's say Since I'm God having a human experience, I'm Brother Rich. I'm gonna have 100,000 viewers watching my show.
Mhm.
They can't do that. They won't do that. It won't penetrate human events. They believe it in some type of ambiguous, I don't know if that's the right word, but some type of multi-dimensional way of thinking. They believe, they know I am God in a multi-dimensional way of thinking. But when it comes time to human events, I'm God, so I could do this. I'm God, so I could do that. I'm divine, so I'm gonna have the most magnificent child or the magnificent wife. They don't believe that. It ends there. It stops there. It stops there. So talk to me about us tapping into that God frequency,
Yeah.
but when we use the technology of imagination, we don't use that. We can't use it. There's a blockage that occurs when we try to use that technology to use it for human events. You gotta explain this to me.
Wow, another great question, but you hit it on the head, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
One thing is when a person hears the knowledge and the wisdom, they get that gnosis and that understanding, and then they begin to, oh wow, I believe I'm God walking in the flesh. I'm a fractal of that power. The same divine spark that created everything that exists in the entire universe is in every atom inside of my body, thereby meaning that power is imbued inside of me. How do I tap into it? And so they begin to hear the teachings and hear the knowledge and read. I'm losing my God power now. Thought by thought, by thought, by thought, by thought, by word, my God power is now shrinking. And so another thing that happens is if you don't check yourself, you stay in that frequency for the rest of the day, maybe even longer than that. And everywhere you go, everything is now manifesting darkness. So you're attracting darkness, low vibrational stuff. One problem turns into 10 problems.